Hello from Ron's T-Bone Shed. I'm very unkept today, this Friday. I got a whole mess of stuff in. I haven't done an unboxing in a while. I've been getting them, but I just haven't been taking video of them. So we'll do one today. Actually, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I've gotten really busy, and I can thank you, all of you out there who are looking around and watching my channel and saying, hey, you want to trade? Or can you fix this? Or, whatever. But take a look. Today's two boxes just came in. This one is from a Mr. Carl Pruitt from Facebook, who sold me, two horns. One, the Martin 4501 with a curved hand brace. That's why I sold my other one. And then this one, which you'll see in a little bit. And then this smaller one here is from a friend of mine who's become a friend of mine within the last year. That's Mr. Will Kelly down in Oklahoma. And for those of you who don't know, these are both gentlemen who are on the Facebook trombone groups, and we chat with each other quite a bit. So I've got a little bit of a friend group, and I'm always welcoming more friends. It's like, hey, do you want to try? I got these horns. You got something? And it's like when I was doing comic books, or I was trading comics or whatnot, but now it's trombones. So, all right. So let me get these boxes over on a new table I got from another friend of mine. Her name is Corey. She used to be the repair tech at Sam Ash out here in my area, but she's has her own shop now in her backyard because Sam Ash went out of business. Table. It's got rollers. I can mount these for a paper towel. This looks like it's a container holder that I can mount for bottles, cans, or beverages. And then there's a drawer here. It's not unlocked, but here's the key here, so it'll be a drawer. So this is going to go in my garage, and I'll be able to use it to be more utilitarian and make life just a wee bit easier in the shed. So okay, so let me go ahead and put this up on the camera stand here, and I'll get these boxes opened and we can take a look at what I got today. Okay, we're gonna start with box number one from Mr. Will down in Oklahoma, and looks like it's been traveled a little bit here. You can kind of see it's partially open. Let's see here. This is one of actually several horns that we've been trading back and forth. I'll give him one fancy one. He'll give me like 3 or 4 unwanted horns of his. Because that's the ones I like to buy, are the unwanted. So. It's in an old, these are like the old Holton cases. I think Olds may have used them before. So in the day and age when they were making these, which I think was in the 1950s, these were kind of like, the case to get. You can almost tell an era of trombone from the case, because cases today are different than they were 20 years ago than they were 20 years before that. So let's get this thing open. And let's see what he gave me, shall we? Oh, cool. Okay. It's an Olds. Let me move you a little closer here. There we go. It's open. Ooh. I've got one of these, and I'm happy to have another one. This is an old special. It's the older one with the two-tone. So the L15, the Olds L15, comes with looks like they started doing these sort of these embossed counterweights after they moved to Los Angeles in about 1953. So my guess is this is probably in the 50s. And the old special, the early old specials were all brass. And then the later old specials in the 1970s were all nickel. This one's a little bit of both. So this looks to be, because if you look inside the bell here, I don't know if you can see it, the tones change on the inside of the bell as well. So it's not like this is a special lacquer job. This is Olds red brass. Not exactly which one it is, but yeah, they've been stitched together. You can see the little marks here where they kind of cut the brass and they braze them together. And then you have this beautiful bell etching here, and it says Old Special Effie Olds and son, Fullerton, California. So obviously in the 50s, but it's just a beautiful horn because you look at this red brass down here, and then it travels up to the nickel up here, and it's nickel all the way up until you get to the tuning crook, which is yellow brass, and then we're back to nickel, and then we're back to yellow brass and nickel. It's kind of like the opposite of the super, which was the next step up from this one, where the flare was nickel and the rest of it was yellow brass, kind of like reverse condition. A lot of this also reminds me of the recording, except this is going to have the standard Olds 485 500 dual bore slide. So yeah, this is a beautiful, beautiful horn. Thanks, Will. All right. Slide is equally as beautiful. Not too many variations on the metallurgy here. So we have the nickel up here. We have the nickel hand brace down here, which one, this is hollow, which will make it lighter. Okay, it's got your Olds, you know, turning slide crook here. This isn't screwed in. This is very much like the Reynolds ones too, and the Getsons, where it's actually in a slot and it sits there. You actually have to disassemble the whole thing to get it off. And sometimes I find them missing because people take them off of ambassadors and then put them on other horns. Okay, and it's got the yellow brass. Nothing fancy. It would have been cool to have a little nickel crook down here, but it's still cool. And everything's intact. It looks good. Slide's moving nice. And then this one is round. This isn't the fluted slide, you know, with the flat sides. So, and that's fine too. Okay, because when you dent those fancy fluted slides of Olds, you dent them, you know, and it's a little bit of a problem correcting that to make the slide workable again. So. Alright, that's horn number one. Let's go to horn number two. I'm not going to salvage this box. I mean, it opens up on the ends. I'm just going to split it down the middle like cutting open a fish. Okay, there we go. Hey, got some packing peanuts in here. Get some paper out. Okay. Now this looks like a Holton case, but it could also be a Martin case after LeBlanc bought both Holton and Martin. And again, this is another era. This looks like a 1970s case, hard case. Very similar to the Cons, except this one isn't tapered. The Con cases are tapered. This one's pretty much a rectangle. Okay, here we go. Kind of heavy. Ready? Okay. Where are we? Oh, here we go. Okay. Red brass bell. You can see where they seamed it together here. Red brass bell. Solid. That is solid. It's a solid brace. Yellow brass. Yellow brass. Nickel. These are pretty. Look at that. They're beveled. You know, these little round mounts here are the same kind of mounts that the Yamahas used. So, slide looks great. Slightly squarish crook. Okay, so that wouldn't be a Holton. And then look at the mouthpiece receiver. This would be a Martin. That is a Martin mouthpiece receiver. Nobody else uses these. They taper here. That's a signature Martin piece here. And then let's get in the Velcro off here and take a look at what this is. This is the Martin Magna. Look at that. So the Martin Magna started around the 1950s, before they got bought by LeBlanc, but Magna was their top line, kind of like Lexus's Toyota, and Maybach was the Mercedes. So the Magna is their horn, is their brand, because they use the Magna on a lot of other instruments that they have. And look at that. That is a very broad taper on this bell. I mean, it's a big horn. It doesn't look like a small tenor at all. That looks like about an 8.5-inch bell. big fat throat here, kind of reminiscent of the Yorks. And wow, I'm kind of excited to put a slide on this one and get it to play. But yeah, this was Mr. Carl Pruitt had this and the other Martin. I guess he was cleaning some of his Martins out of his collection. And the slide is fantastic. So I'm not going to have to do any work on this thing. Even though the bell could probably use a little bit of refreshing. I have a Holton TR100, and those were made in the early 1970s. I'm pretty sure by Yamaha. You know, like the Martins also. The other day I was stripping the lacquer off the bell because it was messed up, and I took the brush. I don't know if you guys remember like old Disney TV shows where you see the brush, and as the brush is moving down, it reveals the castle on the park. Well, when I was removing the lacquer off this Holton, which I'm pretty sure was made by Yamaha, as I moved the brush down the bell with the cold brush stripper on it, it would be solid like this on this side of the brush, and then as the brush would move, it would be all crackled on the backside. That's how fast the lacquer dissolved on that horn. And the only horns where the lacquer dissolves that fast are Yamahas. Box are pretty fragile too, but it takes a little more time for the lacquer to crumble up on it. But the Yamaha lacquers just go like crazy. Now, for those of you who don't know about the Yamaha lacquer, and I've talked about it in other videos, what Yamaha does is they hang the horn inside of a room, and then they electrocharge the air, and then they release the lacquer particles into the room, and it attracts to the horn. So what you get, it's almost like powder coating. What you get is you get a very perfect application, a very even application of lacquer over the entire horn. So when you see it, it looks really flawless. But just through the nature of the process that it's not sprayed or brushed on, it's attracted in this fashion. It's very, 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 very thin. So that type of lacquer doesn't hold up well in outdoor weather in terms of a lot of sun, any kind of moisture. It'll just take it off, because when I see Yamaha trombones from some high schools that I donate my services to, their lacquer's gone. You know, it's just gone. It's just brown, red brass. It's just brass, exposed brass, and that's just the way it is. So if you're going to play Yamaha, you know, keep it indoors. You'll be fine. All right. So these are the two horns that came in the mail today. I've got a few more things. I'm just going to kind of walk over here and show you. I've got a fellow from Australia who out here, and he has a little studio, and he teaches about 30 students. And he's an Olds fanatic, so what he does is he buys up these. He'll find them on auction sites or Goodwill or whatnot, and these are, you know, Olds Ambassador trombones. I also happen to have about 4 Olds Ambassador cornets. So these Ambassadors, it's a 70s Ambassador, you can tell, because this is the 70s counterweight. But I'm gonna, you know, strip, undent, and repair and make them all workable for him, so he can sell them to his students, you know, for a fair price. I think I always told him, I said, look, when these are refinished, they're easily $250 horns, you know, but when you try to sell them on eBay or on Reverb or on Facebook Marketplace, people are going to go, oh, it's just an Olds Ambassador. I don't want to pay $150 for that or $200 for that. So truth is, they're worth it. That's why they're around. That's why it's the year 2025, and these horns that were made in 1955, 1965 are still around. They're still intact because they're so flippin' durable, and they're fantastic horns. They have a wonderfully strong tonal center to them, and they're really, you know, they're timeless. They're timeless, ideal student horns or small tenors, and there's a number of people out there that play them professionally, you know, for their outdoor gigs. Because again, the lacquer on these things is like almost bulletproof. So, okay, hang tight. I got a couple more things that I bought off of Facebook Marketplace from a guy who works with his dad, who's actually in Ohio. This guy's in Los Angeles, and they buy up lots of stuff from school districts around here, and I picked up a couple horns from him that I'm going to be refurbishing. One I'm going to donate to a youth group that I started called Impulse Drum and Bugle Corps for their fundraiser. The other one's for me that I have already, but I'm going to either keep this one or sell my other one, or one of the two, because I don't need 2 of these. So hang on a sec here. Okay, I pulled these 2 horns out of the trunk. Let's take a look at what we got here. Let's see, maybe by some it says SHS5, so this came from a high school lot. And what you're looking at here is you're looking at a Blessing Scholastic. You can tell by it's a Blessing right away by this counterweight. You know, it's kind of curved on the sides here. It's cylindrical in the middle. I actually had one of these for a while. My nephew, who's an Orange County Sheriff's deputy, actually has it now. I don't think he ever plays it, but he may end up having one of his kids learn to play it. So it's good that it stays in the family. These are really fantastic standard student level horns. You know, Blessing's been around for a very long time. Recently they closed their doors, I think around 2016, but I still see some of their product being sold, but I think it's made in China now, not in the Blessing factory out here in the USA. And Blessing made a lot of horns for other makers as well. So like York, you know, I mean, when York got bought by another company, which also owned Blessing, they were making the Blessing horns using the Blessing designs for the Yorks, because you would see York on the bell, but then you would see a very similar appearance to all of this, especially like this crook right here. This is pretty common, but when you see this particular nut, the style of this nut is very Blessing. Chances are it's more Blessing than anything else. It can also be consumer. So this, obviously you can see that, and I've got a couple of Blessing B88s which are like the copy of the Con 88H, except they're about a pound heavier because they made them a little more robust for student handling. I got a couple of those, and the same thing happens with the lacquer here. It comes off in big giant chunks like this. And, you know, and the kids' hands aren't here. You know, their neck is here, but you can see that just large chunks and swaths of the lacquer just come off this horn. So whatever their process wasn't that great. A little flat here, but we'll get that taken care of. So nothing major, you know, little area here. I can just kind of push that out with a, you know, dent rod. Okay, bell's in good shape. And then a slide. And again, the thing that always amazed me about the Blessings, as opposed to the Consumer, like the Bundys, this nickel plating would just come off like crazy on the Bundys, but on the Blessings, this stuff is like bulletproof. It's like perfect all the time. I've never found a Blessing where their chrome plated hand grip was deteriorated. It was always flawless like this. So, you know, why couldn't other makers make their hand grips like that? So this is moving. You can feel it drag a bit right around here. You know, about fourth position, which probably indicates that there's probably some dings, dents, or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of plating missing up here. The crook is in good shape. That's funny because the sleeves look like a red brass, and then the crook looks like a yellow brass. So they might have mixed the brass up a little bit. Well, obviously they mix the brass up a little bit. Yeah. So this will be easy to fix and put together and have it ready for an auction piece. And I got that one for free, actually. So that's why I'm using it as a donation piece for the youth group. And I usually, some of the horns that I inherit that I get for free, I actually make them nice and I donate them to nonprofits. Like out in Kansas City, a friend of mine moved out there a few years back. And I talked him into starting a trombone Christmas out there. You know, the big one out here is in Anaheim. But in Wichita, Kansas, he started trombone Christmas. So last year, I donated a couple of trombones to him, and they went really quick. And so I'm probably going to saddle him with I'm probably going to go with like a Bach TB something and an Olds Ambassador and maybe something more vintage just for the fun of it. But I'll ship those out, and then they'll raffle them off. Actually, what I think it was like a door prize, you know, where nobody had to actually pay for it. They just, whoever got the ticket got the horn. So it's just a good way to, you know, kind of spread the trombone love. Okay, now this one looks like also came from a high school, but you can tell by the case, it's got wood case, and it's got like that speaker, I forget the name of the company, textured speaker covering on it. Lots of duct tape, because obviously it's a wood case, so 1950s wood case. Big one here. Handle's missing. I can replace that. So what do we have? It's, yeah, the F Gutcher Music Company, Bakersfield, California, I guess. Sales, rentals, and repairs. So this came from Bakersfield. BHS, Bakersfield High School. That's weird. Anyway, so what do we have here is we have a Reynolds Contempora, 8.5-inch bell, nickel creds on the red brass, nickel, the R counterweight. I like that because it matches my first name. It's all nickel. These were, every horn that Reynolds made was, as far as in their mind, they were all professional level horns. But this was one I think that they were designing for kind of like the not the intermediate player, the advanced player, but the bore on these are either 520 or 515. They shrank to 515 after Reynolds got bought by CMI and combined with Olds in the same factory, where they started making the bell a little smaller and the bore a little bit smaller. But this likely might be a 520. I haven't measured it yet. I just pulled it out of the case. And you can see a lot of the lacquer up here is gone. But again, this was from the 1950s. So we'll get this all straightened out and beautified and probably get it up for sale because I have another one of these. And it's just beautiful. I mean, the way they use the nickel across here, the yellow brass here, the red brass here, the creds. The bell isn't severely damaged. It's got dings, but that's all easy to remedy. I mean, it's really a great horn. You can use it for, concert, symphonic, or jazz, because it's not a big bore. It's not even a full-sized mid-bore, which is usually between 522 and 525. This is either 520 or 515. So these can be used for a lot of very different things. You're like, well, how would you use it in symphonic? I'm like, well, ever try to play the solo in bolero? That's really way high, and you want a very broad sound when you're playing it. This would probably be a really good horn for that. So the red brass, incidentally, the red brass warms the sound up after it zips through the nickel, and then the nickel crayons. I've talked about this a few times, but the nickel crayons on the end of the bell, what it does is it I was looking for the right word, but basically what it does is it deadens the ring at the very end of the bell. So the bell is large to broaden the sound at the end and to help project it, but the crayons keeps it from getting too sizzly as the bell thins out towards the edge. So it's kind of like a tone control feature where it reduces the high-end frequencies near the end of the horn, and it creates more focus in the middle frequencies, middle high. So you get a more tonal sound, direct and tonal sound out of the horn by having that crayons. It's not very popular today. Everybody wants lightweight, paper-thin, tinfoil thickness horns because they're very warm, they're very responsive, but they're not for blowing. I mean, you put a lot of air through the thin horns and they're going to rattle out pretty quick. I've already talked to a few professionals that play in the Disneyland band who are outside all the time, and they get covered up by their trumpet players. They're like, I need something heavier duty. I mean, they're all playing like Yamaha Xenos or something thin. So some of their choices are the Con 48H or the Silversonic Kings. So they're looking for stuff that's harder and more direct. I'm just like, why don't you Olds? Every Olds is like that, even if it's all brass. So here we are, the Contempora slide, beautiful nickel up here with the brass accents right there, yellow brass sleeves, squarish crook. I'm going to need to put a spit valve on that one. This one looks like it was repaired quite a bit because if you look at it, it kind of comes up a little bit. That means somebody got in there with a dent ball, and instead of pushing this bottom part out, it pushed this part up. And then what they did is they just filled in the area between the guard and the thing. So I'm going to remove all this, see if I can remedy some of this and get it back together. This part is dented up here, okay, and these are hollow, and it also happens to be that the slide is also, look at that dent right there. That's pretty ugly. We'll get that one pushed out, and then this is of course loose. So we'll have to get this all put together properly, get the dents out, get it all smoothed out, get it fully operational, all aligned, and make it sweet again. So, because this is what I do. I love the vintage American trombones because they're different than they make them today. A lot of the student horns today are actually made a lot more like the vintage trombones, except without some of the nickel that actually helps aid in the upper register, or with a longer and more meaningful shaped venturi. So the venturi is another tube inside of your top trombone tube, otherwise known as a lead pipe, and that tube actually helps determine the response and the ability for the horn to focus more as you move up in the rank. So you can buy custom venturis from the Brass Arc. I think you can buy them from um, like the Edwards Getson company. But generally what happens is the longer the venturi, and then if they have shape, like if it's just a straight pipe, the longer the venturi is going to give it more focus, like a long-barreled rifle, right? You get the shorter venturi, it's going to be more like a snub-nosed revolver, so it's not going to have the best direction, but it'll tighten up the beginning of it so you get the total focus to be established, and then it travels through the larger slide. So some of the custom ones you can buy, you can't just put in your horn. You actually have to have them fit. You have to take the existing venturi out or put something much smaller in, which you may not want, but they make venturis tubes in different materials. Some people make them out of red brass to soften the tone. Some people make them out of yellow brass to give it a little more brightness, or they'll make them out of nickel to give them super duper response and direction. So it all depends on what you're trying to do. And some of the new horns nowadays, especially with a company like Shire's, where they have just everything is just modular. Older horns have removable and interchangeable lead pipes, like the Martin 4510, which is the Dave Steinmeier model, or you have the Minicorns, the Con 100H, which was modeled after Minicorn, a number of Yamahas, like I've got a Yamaha 691, which has a removable lead pipe. The 695s have like 3 or 4 of them in that model. So some horns are built like that, but those are considered their high pro level horns. So you can modify your other horns. Like that Blessing would probably sing really well if it had a really nice venturi in it. Some of the venturis aren't just straight. They'll start wide at right where the mouthpiece goes in, and then they'll shrink a little bit, and then they'll expand out towards the end of the venturi, kind of like a jet engine does, what they call suck, squeeze, blow. That's how a jet engine works. Well, it's kind of the same concept when it comes to the venturi in your trombone. Anyway, so that's it today. So you saw all the stuff. I almost said crap. You saw all the stuff that I've got in today. I got a lot of work to do, and I got several horns right now that I'm in process with. I've got a Con 50H that I'm refinishing for Mike Burkow, another Facebook friend, who sent me like 4 student horns for this one. This one's getting totally rebuilt and refinished. I've got a Con 6H. I just need to refinish the slide, change out the water key. That's going to go up for sale very soon. I think it's in early 70s. Con 6H, but it feels very substantial, so it might be freshly after they moved to Abilene, but still all the heavier Elkhart parts. I've got an 88H I'm refinishing for a friend of mine, and I've got an 8H that I'm rebuilding for sale, and I've got what else do I have out there? I've got a Bach 12H that I've already stripped, and I'm refinishing for my friend Eric, who I've known since the early 80s because we marched in the Velvet Knights together. And so I've got a bunch of, and then I've got all the olds here for my friend Simon from Australia, who's got a studio and likes to put old horns in all of his students' hands. So it's been pretty busy. I'm kind of busy. It's good. I just need to turn it all into money, because this is my only source of income. Last month was really not good. So got lots of stuff to do. Anyway, hit me up if you have any questions or requests or curious about anything. Feel free to comment in the comment field, and I'll respond. I always do. I respond to everybody. But do me a favor, don't ask me how much any of this is, because I don't know. And if I post for sale, I'll usually have a price, or I'll have a link that points you to my Reverb store or my Facebook Marketplace store if there's no price listed. And I usually don't list them in my videos because the prices, I can't lower or raise them as I want to, so it's not fixed. So, if you want to mess with me, go, how much is it, like most people from South America or the African continent, I'd appreciate that you don't. Okay? All right. And for those of you who are watching, I don't ship to South America, and I don't ship to the African continent. Right now I've only shipped to Canada and Australia, and I haven't shipped to the UK yet, but those are really the only 3 countries I'm going to ship internationally to. And it's expensive. It's like between $250 and almost $300 for shipping. So if you want me to ship to another country, you're looking at that. That's all, US dollar prices. So anyway, I'll talk to you soon. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Bye-bye.